Let's bring in my panel now. Columnist with The Spectator, Terry Barnes, and LNP MP Keith Pitt. Well, welcome to you both. New data today revealing a record number of international students are trying to extend their stay in Australia indefinitely. The number of internal study visa applications reached 35,000 in March. Now, this is up from an average of 9,000 to then 20,000 to now 35,000 over the last couple of years. Not well understood here, Terry, but let's be honest, this is the university sector not selling education, they're selling a migration outcome. That's why the students are choosing Australia over places like the US and the UK, which don't.
Well, effectively they are, Peter, and there's a touch of wink, nudge, no need to say no more in all of this, isn't it? I mean, the universities are quietly sort of letting students know, or not, by not saying anything perhaps, that they're welcome to do what they can to stay on. But the way I see it is that universities are selling education. That's their primary purpose. But they're doing it in a way that they don't care a stuff about the consequences downstream. So if a student wants to stay, that's not their problem, that's somebody else's problem. As long as they make a pretty penny from that international student, they don't care. And that sort of amorality, in my view, is exactly the sort of amorality we're seeing in other areas at the moment on campus, with university chancellors and vice-chancellors refusing to call out anti-Semitism. They don't care as long as they do their job and make their money.
And a lot of the time, of course, these students aren't studying the courses for the jobs that are in demand. You know, they're not the med students that are going out to bush. They're not the nurses that we need. They're not all the jobs that we're after. You know, they're more marketing, more international relations, all the stuff we've got plenty of. Keith, the live sheep ban announced by Labor over the weekend, exports will be banned from 2028. They say it's all about animal welfare. About 100 million on the table for transition packages for farmers. But I know there's a lot of anger in WA tonight. Give us your sense of things.
Oh, Peter, there should be anger. This is absolutely disgraceful. And we've seen media reports today that the Animal Justice Party in Victoria are claiming they got this deal to close the live export industry for sheep out of WA as part of a deal for preference arrangements in the seat of Dunkley in the by-election. If that is the case, that sounds unlawful to me. That needs to be investigated. And those farmers have been sold down the river by the Australian Labor Party. 100 million is a drop in the bucket. This is worth hundreds of millions a year into the economy of Western Australia. It is a disgrace. And what will happen with these sheep? Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of head. They'll end up in a hole in the ground. Right? That is the reality of this decision. They are a lawful enterprise. They're entitled to be in business. And the Australian Labor Party has sent them to the knackers simply because of the ideology of the Labor Party.
And if you're right, a preference deal in Dunkley. Hey, Terry, let's stay down in Victoria. Dan Andrews reported today to be joining forces with Twiggy Forrest. They're going to flog 100 million tonnes of so-called green iron to China a year. He did, of course, Andrew, sign us up, Victoria, to China's Belt and Road deal until the Morrison government was forced to tear it up. And I'll make the mention too, he's got this gig backwards and forwards to Beijing, flogging iron ore, or green steel, I think they're calling it now. He still takes home now, not when he's retirement age, but now, a $300,000 plus pension, courtesy of the poor old Victorian taxpayer.
Well, he's got nothing to do, Peter. He's twiddling his thumbs. But look at, I think, to my way or the highway operators like Daniel Andrews and Andrew Forrest, it's going to be fun to watch, isn't it? But you know, look, I mean, they're both greenies. They're both friends of the Chinese regime in terms of doing business with them. And really, I mean, what I want to know is, how do you make green iron ore? How do you make green iron ore in terms of smelting, in terms of mining, in terms of production? And what's this about 8 million tonnes of renewable hydrogen? I reckon that's just all hot air, if you ask me.
It's shocking, I tell you what. You can't make green iron ore, it's rubbish. Keith, Victorian government, and this is just the start, coming to a state near you, they're looking to lock up 300,000 hectares of forest area in central Victoria. They're going to call it a national park. This is about Indigenous groups and environmental groups getting what they wanted, but camping and horse riding, four-wheel driving, all of that's likely to be banned.
Peter, this is just the beginning. Don't forget, Tanya Plibersek signed our country up to an agreement where 30% of our land mass has to be locked up, and they are 60 million hectares short. So 300 to 400,000 hectares is just the beginning. So for every single person that's watching your show that likes camping, that likes being in the bush, that likes accessing these areas, 60 million hectares of that has to be taken away from you, from use by the Australian people for their purposes, simply so that they can meet a UNESCO deal that was done by the Labor government. I just think this is appalling. These things are there for all Australians. They should be open for use. And how else do they get managed? They get locked up, they get overrun by pigs and feral animals, and that's what happens with a lot of national parks, unfortunately.
Not wrong. Gents, I'll leave it there. Thank you both for your time. Good luck with Budget Week.